What if I told you that the way most people train is actually breaking their bodies instead of building it? This is because most people fall in the size paradox. You look strong, sure, but underneath all of that muscle is a rigid, stiff, and immobile body. Now, what makes this problem even worse is that you keep going at it again and again and again. And that's because you're either disappointed by the protocols you get from your PTs, you're scrolling on YouTube, finding some videos, get a little bit of relief, but after a couple of weeks, you're back at square one. Or most commonly, you just don't have the time or the mental bandwidth to go analyze what the heck is going on. It's the same prison I fell into time and time again, even earlier this year where I tried to dust up some strength goals and I got a nagging sensation in my shoulder. But I broke free. And that's because I stopped scouting for surface level solutions. I started to dig deep until I found the root cause. And in that pursuit, I made a discovery that made a fundamental shift that fixed my shoulder and unlocked a world of movement freedom. And this is what I'm about to share with you. So if your back is stiff, your hips are frozen, or your shoulders feel very tight, this video is for you. Now, first, I want you to picture the following two scenarios because I'm 99% sure you heard of it. Scenario one, you try to pack on some size. So what do? You go with squats, deadlifts, but over time you start to feel some aches, sensations, and pain even around your lower back. So next up is you go to your PT and you ask for help. The PT scans your body, and what does it recommend? It recommends to do some cat and cows. Scenario two, you perform a dip, but at one point you feel a little bit of a pinching sensation in your shoulder. So you stop. What do? You ask for help. You go to a specialist, and the specialist says you got to do some more rotator cuff stuff to strengthening the shoulder. So you do some light banded rotator cuff exercises with a lot of reps, a lot of volume, and a lot of time. Now tell me you don't recognize one of these two scenarios, because I have. And through many personal trial and errors, I found that this approach really falls short because of two major problems. Problem one, plane bound. The common thread in the first scenario is that all of the exercises or protocols fall into one plane of motion, the sagittal plane of motion. And these are all movements that you perform forwards and backwards. Think of squats, lift, pushes or bench press, a pull, and even a cat-cow. But how do humans actually walk? We do that by moving contralaterally, meaning that the left shoulder moves towards the right hip or the right shoulder moves towards the left hip, creating this diagonal line when we locomote. We fall forward, we catch ourselves, and then we push ourselves up. And in that process, we always use a contralateral path. Now, how do humans run or sprint? Again, we move contralaterally. Now, how do humans throw or even brachiate? Again, we move contralaterally. And contralateral movement entails all of the movement patterns that we can do, which are three, which is forwards and backwards movement from the sagittal plane. We got lateral movement or side to side movement, which is the frontal or coronal plane. And then we got rotational movement, which is the transverse plane. Problem number two, isolation over integration. Now with the second scenario, it takes a very isolated approach of looking at the problem. It looks at a muscle specifically, but what it doesn't address is how the rotator cuff in that case works together with the lat, with the delts, with the lower lats, with the trapezius, etc. And here's what many don't know about muscles. Muscles are actually quite dumb. Powerful, yet dumb. And the reason is they only act or relax based on the commander-in-chief, which is the brain or the central nervous system. So it only acts when it gets told to, and it stays put when it's also being told to. So pouring all of our attention into fixing the muscle doesn't really mean much if we don't address the root cause, which stems from how the muscle is contracted via the nervous system or the brain. And the body is a very adaptive biomachine that stores everything. So past injuries or even tissue damage or traumas, it adapts based on all of those events that take place. So wouldn't it make sense to look at the bigger picture when we're trying to address where certain pains, aches, or stiffness come from? But where do we start when we want to take a look at a more integrative approach of addressing the root cause? Is it the arms? Is it the legs? Or do we need to look at the joints? Well, let me ask you, if I were to take away your arms, would you still be able to move? Yes. If I would take away your legs, would you still be able to move? Yes. Then what is left? It is the spine. Because if you take away the spine, movement is over. Because the spine is not just a cute accessory, it's one of the main drivers for how we move. Think of the spine as the center of a spider web. So when a spider is going to create these beautiful strings, it always draws from the center. Without it, it will be very hard to create other strings and eventually create the entire web, which in our case are muscles, bones, ligaments, tendons, fascia. Everything evolves around the spine. Now, what do you feel happens to the way we move when our spine feels like this big chunk of concrete? You're slowly taking away options for the body to move. Stiff lower back. Well, maybe it's because you twisted your ankle in the past, leaving the need to make some adjustments where eventually the hips shifted and the back had to compensate. Stiff upper back. Well, maybe you felt some restrictions around your hip internal rotation, causing the spine to deviate a little, making one side overactive and one side underactive. Everything that happens in the body involves the spine. So if we want to take a look at the root cause, we want to make sure to start with the spine. And what I'm about to reveal to you right now is one concept that will rejuvenate your spine so that you can truly start to experience movement freedom once again. Now, what if I told you there is a way to make your spine more fluid, less pain, and even more explosive without needing any form of equipment? And this is learning to coil your spine, aka the coiling core method. And this is developed by a movement innovator called David Weck. And its main purpose is to re-establish improving how the spine bends when we locomote in combination with the hips and the shoulder. Now here's what the coiling core does. Every time we walk, we sprint, we run, we use this rotational movement, what happens is that we shift our weight slightly towards the direction in which we're moving into. So if the left leg is in front, the spine bends a little bit towards the left. If we move towards the right, the spine bends a little bit towards the right. Now here is why learning to better bend that spine is so important. Every time we take a step, we are fighting the harsh reality of facing gravity. So there's always something pulling us down towards the earth. Now, if you're stiff in your spine, a lot of compensation tend to happen around other regions of the body. But if you're fluid in your spine, you tend to work much better with those unforgiving laws of gravity. So what the coiling core learns us is that we always move on an infinity path with our spine. But for most people, that infinity symbol is rather small. And learning to coil your core tends to make that infinity pattern bigger, therefore making your movement through space much more fluid, efficient, and with potentially less pain. And then issues around your hips, lower back, mid back, or in my case, my left shoulder, tend to dissipate because the whole structure is organized in a much more proficient way. Now, there are 4 fundamental positions to the coiling core. You can embed right away. You don't need any equipment. You only need a wall for assistance, and you can immediately start to work on learning to coil your core. And what you will notice is that in the beginning, it might feel a little bit off, but if you do it enough, you will be exposed to many imbalances on the left and right side. Plus, you feel much more fluid when you start to walk, run, or even throw or catch, or all of the things that involve rotational movement. Now, to help you out, let me give you a live demonstration of the coiling core so that you can start embedding it right away. Now, to get acquainted with the different coiling cores, we're going to use a wall. The wall will help us with a little bit of balance and stability so that we can really iron out or get that contraction with the end range of our rotational capacity going. So we'll start with the front side coiling cores, where we want to bring one leg in front, or the front side coiling core refers to having the side that we're coiling into, the left side, the feet or the foot is then, or the leg is then in front of us. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to keep the lat of the lengthened side against the wall, so leaning against the wall. And then from here, what I want to do is I want to drive the knee forwards while keeping this nice parallel between the shin and the spine. So this is called the spine shin congruency, but that means that I'm not leaning forward or backward where there's a separation in the direction of the spine and the shin. And I want to aggressively lean forward so that basically the rear foot is almost non-existent. So using the wall, leaning with this lat side against the wall, leaning forward, then I want to far steer one elbow, far steering meaning away from the body. So I'm far steering this elbow away, bring the hand in, and with this side I'm coiling, which is near steering. So I'm near steering this elbow in an external fashion, which means that I'm contracting the lower lat. So external is engaging the lower lat, making that contraction very apparent. And from here, I'm keeping my eyes horizontal because this will get me out of balance. And then from here, leaning forward, contracting as hard as I can by pushing the shoulder blade down, making sure that there's not a tricep extension going on, but I'm really pushing down with the shoulder, far steering, holding this for the given amount of seconds, getting that contraction going, keeping that feet almost non-existent, and then coming out. So that is the front side external. Then with the internal, we're basically setting up the same thing. So keeping that spine shin congruency alive, leaning forward, far steering the elbow, keeping this side against the wall. And then instead of contracting the lower lat, which is the external part, we're now going to an internal contraction, which is working more the front side, the oblique region. So again, bringing this elbow in, but instead contracting here, I'm bringing the elbow more in front, contracting the oblique. Again, leaning against the wall, contracting, contract, keeping the eyes horizontal for the given amount of time. And then you switch sides. So the front side coiling core will really address the positions that we use the most for locomotion, but then we move towards the back side, and back side is really with swinging, with punching, kicking, so also a very important position to embed. Basically the setup is the same in the way that we also make that engagement from the lat with the wall, but instead of having the front leg or one leg in front, we now have one leg in the back. What I want you to do is, in this case, I want you to increase the base of support slightly by creating a wider stance, moving backwards, give us a little bit more stability. And then from here, making the same connection, so far steering, leaning against the wall. We're starting with the external coiling core, but in this case I want to lean back until I'm around 60 to 70% of my weight on this rear foot. Again, now contracting, so pulling the shoulder down, making that contraction, far steering, holding it, keeping the eyes horizontal. Perform for the given amount of repetitions, then coming out, setting up again in the backside, now performing the internal backside coiling core. Setup is the same, leaning against the wall, 70% of the weight on the rear foot, but now bringing the elbow more in front, engaging the oblique. So these are the 4 fundamental positions that I want you to perform, of course, on both sides, and perform for the given amount of repetitions. Now, working on the coiling core to improve that rotational movement that the majority of us miss out on is one of the 3 key pillars inside of my system. A system specifically designed for busy parents or busy professionals, but still want to feel athletic, want to feel strong, powerful, and pain-free. All without having to sacrifice precious family time or their careers. That's because I help them implement the system that takes less than 2 hours per week to complete. I'll explain more about the ins and outs of the program in future videos, but if you already want to get in touch, you can do so via one of the links down in the description below. Now, how do you program the coiling core into your current training system? Now, what I like to do and what I help my clients with is that they do 1 to 3 sets of 15 seconds of each position of each side. After a set, they rest for 30 seconds and they stretch out the side that was contracting. Now, secondly, I want them to contract as hard as they can for the duration of those 15 seconds because I want them to develop the strength in that end range of motion of this infinity pattern of the coiling core. Now, finally, I want them to observe any imbalances that occur during the rest of the session to see where we can pinpoint and progress. Okay, now you know why you should start working on the coiling core to feel less pain around the spine, use it to improve locomotion or how you move, or any imbalances that you might have on the left or the right side. And all that's left to say is thank you for watching, and if you want to see more of those videos, like and subscribe, and then I'll get going. See you in the next one.